Call the meeting to order. Welcome everybody, and if you will stand, pledge allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All righty, Mr. Randy Stone will give us our invocation.
Let us pray. Our Heavenly Father, you have instructed us that in our prayers we should always give thanks. And we do give thanks today. We thank you, Lord, for the beauty of the place in which we live. We thank you, Lord, for the prosperity that you're currently giving us. And for those, Lord, who may not be sharing in that prosperity, we do pray for them that they might indeed share and have what they need as well. We thank you, Lord, for the blessing of abundance that we have for the most part in our country. We pray that for those in Haiti right now, and having been there and seen their extreme poverty, it not only causes me burden for them, but also causes me to have great thanks for all that you've blessed us with here. And our Father, we thank you for our capable leaders. And we do come before you asking tonight for wisdom. You have said to us that if any man lack wisdom, let him ask of God, who gives to all men generously, liberally, and does not reject. And Father, we just pray that you would give them the wisdom, the divine wisdom, that is both peaceable and pure, and that you would direct them in the affairs of our community. We're thankful, Lord, for the good leadership we've had in the past, and we just pray, Lord, that you continue to direct them, give them grace and strength, and we'll be grateful for all you do. In Christ's name, amen.
All right, a couple announcements. We have a box of Our State magazines from the March issue that had a nice article about the town of Black Mountain. Compliments to the board. If you don't have one, pick one up and take it with you and while it lasts. And I want to give us a storm of Alberto update. The town of Black Mountain issued a state of emergency on May 31st, 2018. The emergency response team, consisting of North Carolina Emergency Management, North Carolina Department of Public Safety, and FEMA representatives, visited the town on June 5th to conduct damage assessments of town property. Emergency response team, consisting of North Carolina Emergency Management, visited the town to do assessments of private property. And then the North Carolina Baptist Personnel Relief Team arrived on June 26 to speak with property owners regarding their damages. The town staff provided excellent emergency response during and after the event and compiled a list of damaged property. Town staff visited all the locations in town that had damages and reported 57 possible private properties having different types of damage. The list was provided to Buncombe County Emergency Management. Town staff also contacted following agencies attempting to get assistance: the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers in the Asheville Regulatory Field Office, USDA, the NC Rural Water Association, Buncombe County Soil and Water Conservation, Buncombe County Emergency Management, and the Baptist Disaster Relief Chapter. We've been waiting on responses from those guys, and today at 3:39 we received one response. Said, "Good afternoon, here are the following numbers specifically for Black Mountain. Mobile homes with damage was 43, single family homes 4, businesses 5, culverts damaged 3, driveways damaged 1. Many of the mobile homes affected by the flooding had damaged or missing skirting with standing water on the lots. The single-family homes appeared to be affected, but with minor damage, with the exception of one home with a flooded basement." When asked, the businesses affected in Black Mountain, we visited and stated that they were closed for one day, storage facility stated several of the units were flooded, causing renters to have damaged and destroyed personal items in the storage. This is pulled from the damage assessment worksheets generated during the damage assessments done in Black Mountain on June 25th. And then at 4:08 p.m., we received another bit of information, and it said the possible availability of assistance is one that I am unable to answer, other than the North Carolina Volunteer Association's NCVOAD activated the 211 system in order to assist those affected by the storm. Those that need assistance can call 211 and they will reach an operator that can help them connect to a volunteer group or organization in that area that may be able to assist them in the cleanup and rebuild process. So, folks, that right now is as far as the information that we're getting from any of the federal and state levels, we don't know of any assistance that's coming, but they do have a 211 line that we can residents can call them, and they may be able to have some volunteers that would come out and assist them with some of their cleanup and whatever. All righty. With that, then we go on to proclamation and award recognition, oath of office for advisory board and commission members. Miss Angela Reese will swear you guys in.
Will all my boards and commission members come up that's here to be sworn in? Thank you for coming. You need a choice. You can either stand together and put someone hold the Bible left hand on the Bible and raise your right, or you can just affirm, whichever you prefer. I'm going to read your oath, and when I get to the part where it says as a member of, just state the board that you were selected to be on. And when I say I, you say your name. So I, do solemnly and sincerely affirm that I will support and maintain the Constitution and laws of the United States and the Constitution and laws of North Carolina, not inconsistent therewith, and that I will in all respects observe the provisions of the Charter and the ordinances of the town of Black Mountain, and I will faithfully discharge the duties of my office as a member of the town of Black Mountain. Congratulations. Thank you. Sign your oath and sign your name. That we official. The last copy is for you. You get this one? No, you get the nice one. I'll take this one. Okay. Are you going to take this one? I'll take it. Thank you. Thank you. You can have a nice one. Thank you. Thank you.
Okay. Citizen comments. We have 3 folks that have signed up to speak. You will have 3 minutes. Watch your little light up here when it gets set, when you get started, and when it turns red, your 3 minutes will be over. I'd like to have E.V. Googe come up.
E.V. Googe, 131 Fairway Drive, Black Mountain. Is anybody other than me old enough to remember in grammar school saving Blue Horse notebook wrappers off the notebook paper to win prizes? Just me and you. Okay. There was a 7th grade teacher named Lou Lindsay and a lunchroom director named Florence Melton, sisters, who saved enough Blue Horse notebook paper wrappers to buy their nephew Tommy Lindsay a Blue Horse bicycle, the one and only that I know has ever been owned in Black Mountain. I, at the same time, caddied on the golf course and made $30. My dad added 5, and I bought a new swing bicycle. Our favorite riding place was around the freight depot. which had 4 sides, and it was east of the present passenger depot. And so it had a ramp down the west side. And we rode that until Tommy went down the ramp, T-boned a car, and that ended the Blue Horse bicycle. Well, that freight depot, most of the freight had to do with unloading new Fords, Chevrolets, and Kaiser Frazers, Henry J's, for the 3 dealerships here in Black Mountain. Well, when the highway interstate came through, changed Highway 9 so that it came straight up Broadway rather than Broadway turning left down there. And so they tore that down. Well, Woodcock built a little cement dock for his Fords. And when in our Centennial Commission, we were looking for a place to put a monument, and that cement dock was the ideal place. So I'm here just to tell you, going by, I told my history so you know there's some cherished memories involved in that particular location. Well, I called the morning before or the morning of the fireworks. Carlos was very immediately responded to me saying, the reason I called is the water fountain was not running, and there were going to be like over 1,000 people down there by that monument, and I wanted it to look as best as it could. So Carlos followed up, and I'm here to thank Angela Reese and Jamie Maxwell and all the other town employees for a job well done. Thank you.
All right, Miss Jessica Ringel. And if you will, please give your address, please, ma'am, too.
Hi, Jessica Ringel, 4 Carefree Lane, here in Black Mountain. And respectfully address you guys. Actually, Mr. Mayor, you answered a little bit of my question and also why I'm speaking to you guys today. And the reason I'm here is because I'm a concerned neighbor and resident of Carefree Lane, which was badly affected by our flood. And I am hoping that maybe you all, and maybe everybody in this room, can help my neighbors who now have a creek running in their front yard. And I don't know what has to be done or what can be done or what influence you all could have upon the Army Corps of Engineers to help them get over there and get that out of there. But this family doesn't have much money, and they're having to pay rent to live somewhere else. They can't live in their home. I went to talk to my neighbor, James, and had to walk through, water up over my ankles to get to him to speak to him. And he's out there trying to move some of the stuff around. And I understand that we cannot do anything without permits and this sort of thing. And I also understand that the town can't really, or it's not your purvey, or it's not your jurisdiction to help out with that. But if there's anything at all that you all can do, or if there's anything that we as a community can do for these people, I would really, really, really respectfully ask that we do that. So that's why I'm here. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, Mark Sorkin.
Hi, Mark Sorokin, 104 Pearson Lane, and by this time you probably realize I wasn't born here. But I chose to be here. I could have retired any place I wanted to, and I chose Black Mountain. Black Mountain truly is a gem, and the diamond, the ruby in that crown, is the Department of Parks and Recreation. I was always amazed that a small town like Black Mountain could have such an extensive department as Parks and Recreation. The programs for just about everybody in the community. I'm especially interested in the ones for the actively aging. Vested interest, I guess. In any event, I was disappointed to hear that the two people most responsible for developing this award-winning program resigned. That was very disappointing to me and other people. I'm not privy to the reason for this. I'm sure there are things going on that I will never know. But I just wanted to express my opinion and say that we've lost two very valuable people. As I said, I don't know what the cause is, but I assume, realistically, that's probably management. But I don't know that for sure. And I still have the green light, and I better get off the stage before the hook comes out and yanks me off. Thanks for the opportunity to address you all.
Yes, sir. Thank you. We'll now have our communications boards, commissions, and agencies. The first up will be ABC Board Chair Bill Christie.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, Alderman. Thank you for giving us this opportunity. I apologize, I don't really have a written report, but I thought I'd give a brief update. As you know, if you've driven down Highway 9, things have been busy at the ABC store. We have been involved with extensive remodeling of the store. It's been a multi-year process for the board thinking about. At one point we considered expanding it, but that proved to be very costly, and so we decided to look at what our other options were, and so we have essentially expanded the retail space by about 50%. Got new floors, new walls, new ceilings, security cameras, new lighting. It looks very nice. That building was originally built, I think, during the 80s and really hadn't been updated since then. And the state ABC system really suggests strongly that we try to modernize our stores. And as the board probably remembers, for the last few years, we ceased making any extra distributions to the town in order to stockpile some cash to help us with that, and that's worked out really well for us. As you also probably know, the ABC board right now, it's $54,000 a year that comes to the town, and we certainly hope in the next year or two that we'll really be able to pick that up, because we think the renovations will pay off dividends. So other than that, things are the staff there at the store gets great kudos. The transition, they had to move and sell out of the warehouse for a couple of months, and that was not easy, but they did a great job, and it's a really good staff. It's a great board. We get along well, and we move things along, and so that's it in a nutshell. If there's any questions, I would certainly answer them. But
Bill, I know you don't have a written report, which is fine, but for the sake of the public and just information, I think it's nice for the public to know. Generally, you mentioned $54,000 a year distributions to the town. Also, a distribution to the county.
To Buncombe County, they get $18,000, so it's a 3-to-1 on
and
that.
The town contribution, are you including in that the police, the part that goes for law enforcement?
Law enforcement and contributions for alcohol education, which we do to First. I really apologize, I should have had the figures, but the amount of taxes that we pay to the state is enormous.
Gross revenue, the gross sales are...
The last couple of years, a little over $2 million.
Well, that number's about 40% of that almost, isn't it, in taxes? It's a pretty steep
Yeah,
number.
oh yeah,
Gross
no,
sales.
it's a very, and our operating expenses are very modest, we think.
So it's sort of good for the town to know that in addition to, and the potential now for even more distributions with some growth.
We hope so.
But there's a lot that goes into the community, the police.
That's right.
Alcohol, I guess it's called enforcement, but ours
That's
goes
right.
to the Black Mountain Police Department and First,
Right.
I'm sorry, what's that organization called?
I think it's called
First
First at Blue Ridge, yeah.
Yeah, First at Blue Ridge, but a lot of funds flow out to the community from
And I think
the ABC store.
the other point I'd like to make is of course, there were no funds from the town that went into this renovation. It was all money that we saved from the sales, and then also we borrowed a little bit of money, and we're going to hope to pay that off very rapidly.
Renovations total about $500,000.
Yeah, in that neighborhood. That's right. Yeah. So we're pleased with it.
Appreciate your work.
Yeah.
Bill, have you noticed an increase in sales since they started the Sunday sales?
So what?
The Sunday liquor by the drink?
Oh,
Have there been an increase in
I
the
think
sales?
in general, our sales to the restaurants are up, and so I don't know if that's exactly related to that, but it's really up. And just so everybody knows, any restaurant that sells alcohol, liquor, has to buy it through the store, and so it's a separate system. But those numbers are up actually quite a bit.
Thanks.
Yeah, thank you.
Anyone else? Thanks, buddy.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Ron, the consent agenda. Wait a minute. Oh, Greenways, I'm sorry. Leslie Teeple, I'm about to forget you, lady.
I was hoping you were going to forget me. This is our new brochure, about a year old actually.
And I apologize to the audience and to those watching that the PowerPoint that we prepared isn't able to be shown. However, I realize all of you have a copy of it, so I'm going to do it page by page so you can see some pictures as we go along. So basically, page one is the fact that it's the Black Mountain Greenway annual report for 2018. It's been a very busy year for the commission. If you look at page two, our public awareness activities have included producing a promotional video, which I'm sure most of you have seen, appeared in many different web pieces of it, links. We had promotional tables at the Valentine Run, the Greenway Challenge, and the Bounty and Soul Delivery Day. And we sponsored the Black Mountain Walkable Guide. Page three, we were in the Christmas parade, and this year, besides giving out the pickles, we all wore green wigs. So we were taking the greenways to pretty much the extent that we all could. Page four, we had a very successful year in fundraising. The Greenway Challenge, which is a 5 and 10K, had 214 runners, 30 volunteers, and this year netted a record of $6,500. Okay, page five, public art. We received a $10,000 private funded grant to produce the second piece by Julie Barr, which is in the recreation, actually it's over by the disc golf in Recreation Park. This year we have another $10,000 for another piece, which will be the third piece that she's done. And the commission has agreed to come up with another $2,500 in funding. Page six, funding, we also do holiday market, tailgate market, and this year we raised $425, putting a total in our account at this end of this year of $37,193. Okay, page seven. The Walk to School program, which we do both in fall and spring. In the fall, we had 155 participants, and in the spring, we had 133 participants. I think yours are black and white, and I apologize for that too, because some of the pictures are very interesting to see. Again, relative to our public art, we had community involvement. Oh, I'm on page 8, sorry. The public art this time by Julie is entitled The Alchemy of Dawn, and actually it has to do with marbles. And so we had a day that we put out to the public that anybody who wanted to come and participate to actually put the piece together could come and get up on a ladder, and we put all the marbles in. We probably had 20-some people there helping Julie put that together. Recently, and I know the mayor was on it, we had a walk with the Buncombe County Commissioners. As you know, a lot of our funding for some of our greenways for the construction comes from Buncombe County, and we took them on a very wet, rainy day walk and bus tour to show them different areas that we're hoping to put into our next budget. Several of the commissioners have been to training programs, and on page 10, you'll see that 3 of us attended the Carolina Thread Trail Forum, which is in Charlotte, and it's all about weaving the communities together. Last but not least, on page 11, we've been collaborating with other groups like the Veterans Park Stakeholder Group, Friends of Connect Buncombe. Fonta Flora Trail, for those of you who may or may not know, is the state trail that will be going literally east to west across Black Mountain, and also the Greenway Partners. And last but not least, I'd like to thank all of you aldermen for the support that you have been giving to the Greenways. Any questions?
If you will, tell the folks we had the walk in the rain with the commissioners. If you would tell them the results of that.
My understanding is that's a $400,000 grant that's coming from the county.
That was approved.
That was
they
approved.
Came out here to look at things and walk greenways, trails, and that's what they're doing.
Right.
Doing for the town. Thank you, ma'am.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
You know, Mr. Mayor, I wonder if it's worth, this may or may not be a good time to do it, but just briefly make the public aware of the funds that are coming, you know, the Greenway construction for the next loop.
You go right ahead. I think that'd be good.
Well, I'll give it a shot, and anybody else can jump in. Maybe, Jessica, are you prepared to do that? A brief summary, I mean, like 2 minutes, but you know, we're making quite a commitment, and it's a pretty big deal. So if you could do that, that'd be great. If that's agreeable to you.
Yes.
Absolutely.
This one's just seared in my head, so sure.
We went to the MPO earlier this year to see about getting an additional allocation to continue the Riverwalk project in a more robust fashion instead of trying to do a little bit here and a little bit there. So we approached them for $2.25 million that includes an 80-20 split, and we've gone back and asked for an additional $750,000, which is percolated through the local system and has gone on to the state final approval because the scope of work had to be aligned to match those dollars. So the state surface transportation plan had to be amended locally and also has to be amended at the state. And after that, and all the data from our engineers are approved from DOT, we will get a new contract that aligns all of our funding from both allocations and the full scope of work into one document. And that will be a really wonderful day for us, and we will be much more organized, and our money and our contracts will be in one place.
So that's great, but the total contract will be?
The previous allocation was 1.6, and then the 2.25 plus the 750. I think that gets us to 4.5 or close to it.
Okay, so in that so again, for the public, that's $4.5 million. We pay 20%. It's an 80-20 split. So for every dollar, we pay 20 cents of that, and we have it budgeted out over a number of years. And this is to connect our Greenway system. It'll go under the railroad track. It'll go under 70. It'll go under 9. I mean, all that. It'll connect over to the park. So that is a multi-year project, and it's a significant commitment by the town, even with 20%. but it will, we think it'll pay a lot of dividends. And can't really talk about the Greenways without making sure everyone knows that that is in place. And we're hoping that the first piece will be from down at
Black Mountain Avenue in front of the new Public Works building.
Right.
There should be, as we're hoping to first do a spur from that location up Black Mountain Avenue and tie into the existing pedestrian network in front of Louisa's Kitchen. That's also got the public parking right there, so that little section will be the first to be worked on.
And then as far as connecting, you'll connect from there back to the Oaks Park.
Yes, how we're going to get there exactly remains to be seen.
Right.
I have a meeting on Wednesday to meet with the hotel developer to see if we can get an easement on the hotel property to try to avoid some pinch point issues that we actually have on our parcel, because it's to our advantage in the nature of the Greenway to keep it on the river and try not to go on road if we can help it.
Right.
I told the developer if he wasn't interested, let's not get together, and he still said come on, so
Right.
fingers crossed.
So what we hope is that we'll get that connection from the Oaks down to the downtown area first off and get some dividends out of that, hopefully up front. So we're excited about that. Thank you.
And from what my understanding is, our $400,000 that we're getting from the county can go toward the town's part.
Absolutely.
As far as the matching grants, which really helps the town out a lot as far as coming up with the money to do that.
It does, and we will continue to pursue other grants to try to continue to eat away at that match.
Thank you, ma'am.
Yep.
Thanks, Jessica.
Okay, Ron. Consent agenda.
Consent agenda. The first item of business will be the adoption of minutes from prior meetings, and those would include the minutes of May 14th, 2018 closed session, the May 21, 22, 2018 closed sessions, the June 7th, 2018 agenda session, the 2011-2018 regular session, the June 11th, 2018 closed session, the June 21st, 2018 special called session, the June 21st, 2018 closed session, the June 28th, 2018 closed session, the June 29th, 2018 special called session. The item B would be a request put in by me. That's my request for the board to act on, that as the gentleman pointed out earlier, we have some people who have resigned in our recreation department, and after I got here and a couple of weeks ago saw that we had nobody running the recreation department, I thought, given that the recreation department and that the Jamie Matthews department, the maintenance department, that they are going to move into the same building, so it would probably be apropos to appoint him head of the department temporarily as an interim person to help coordinate that move, because we're trying to move forward with moving, and I'll get to that in a few minutes, the foam and fabric building. So I appointed him the interim director in addition to his duties of the Parks and Rec, and I asked that the board give him a 10% raise as long as he holds those duties and make it retroactive to June 18th. Item C under the is acceptance of a portion of Louisa Street as publicly maintained street, and I'd ask that you accept that dedication of that portion of the street in accordance with the approved subdivision plan dated January 9, 2014. Item D, a call for a public hearing to close an unopened platted street near Carver Avenue, Resolution 18-10, R18-10, and ask that we have a motion to call for a public hearing on that to be held on Monday, August 13th, 2018 at 6 p.m. or as soon thereafter as possible in the boardroom of Town Hall here at 160 Midland Avenue. And then finally, a resolution of approval for crosswalks improvement. That would be to adopt resolution R-18-11 supporting the Department of Transportation improvements to downtown crosswalks. Then I'd ask the consent motion to approve consent items A through E as presented.
Do we have a motion?
So moved.
I'd like to ask a question just about the crosswalks and so forth, and I read that, but I was a little uncertain as to kind of what that would look like.
I believe Jessica would be the one to probably enlighten us.
Our planning chairman, Lisa Milton, brought to my attention a particular crosswalk downtown earlier this year as being concerned about it. And I forwarded my concern onto DOT. It didn't bubble to the top as a high priority at the moment. Then a couple of weeks later, there was a near miss of a child in that particular crosswalk.
This is the one from kind of at the Mary Wine Market, or just a little bit up from it. That's the one. That's the problematic one.
Yes, that's one of them. And so I let DOT know that we had an issue, and they immediately wanted to come and do a site visit. And so some traffic engineers came from the district, and we walked downtown, and they had several suggestions that they wanted to make downtown safer. One was the removal of the crosswalk that goes across State Street to the corner of Cherry in front of the store with like, the souvenir shop. And their reasoning for that is because directly to the left, there is a crosswalk that is signaled, which is significantly safer because it's at the corner and has a signal. And this one's in close proximity. And it's not signaled. And it's hard to see because cars park right up to it and pedestrians kind of have to stick their necks out and look. So they recommended removing that crosswalk altogether, that it was kind of unnecessary. The existing crosswalks beyond that have worn, for lack of a better word, and need to be freshened. I kept saying repainted, and they kept saying refreshed the paint. So I'm not sure if there's an appreciable difference, but they are going to paint them and make them brighter and add additional pedestrian crossing signage. A little bit further down at the corner of Church and State, there is like a van parking spot, and it's in front of the crosswalk. And they recommend removing that and using it for like bike parking or some other feature, but to remove that tall line of visibility issue for pedestrians again right at that spot. So they also want to add additional signage to the signal lights so they're all consistent and very clear which button works for which light. They're not consistent, and it can be a little confusing. So they're going to improve those. And so those are the ones for sure. There was a crosswalk on Broadway that they don't know how it got there. They said they didn't put it there, and they did not want to put it back. But since then, a business owner, because it was much too wide and it kind of meandered a little bit, their recommendation was to not put one there again. Since that business owner has asked about a pedestrian crossing being put in that same vicinity, and so DOT is going to come back. This is not included in this resolution, but they are going to come back and do another visit to that area specifically and look at it in greater detail to see if they think it is warranted or not. So,
so we're talking, I mean, potentially, this is not in what we're voting on, but potentially there may be a consideration for removing the crosswalk on Broadway.
The one on Broadway was gone in the paving. It's gone. Right. It was they weren't going to put it back.
But that's not settled yet.
Right, they're going to.
It does seem like you need one there somewhere.
Yeah, they didn't authorize that one, and so they didn't want to put it back because it didn't meet the current safety standards. So if one does go back, it will probably be in a slightly different location.
Right. The only other question I had too was about if everybody's doing the crossing there at our big intersection in town, do those lights? My experience has been it's a long way.
Yeah.
And maybe you can't do anything about that because of the way the traffic flows. But did they look at that at all?
Yeah, I don't know if they look at wait times. They look at traffic counts, and I know that they have limitations on how long they want those cars to line up because they can back up into the intersection and things. But so they probably get priority in that. But I don't know that for sure.
Well, it could be. I don't want to take up any more time with it because thank you. That's helpful for me. But it could be that when our traffic flow changes, once the exchange of Blue Ridge Road, that we could come back and revisit some of those. Those lights and the timing and so forth, because I think the traffic flow will change a little bit in there.
I agree, and it's definitely a small area of pedestrian refuge for people to kind of bunch up and wait. So absolutely.
It might change. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, we have a motion to approve consent items A and E already. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Approves 5-0. All right, now we have citizen comments on any unfinished or new business. First item, and Have no such comments, so unfinished business agreement for wholesale purchase of water from the city of Asheville.
May I spent a fair amount of time the last couple of weeks trying to acquaint myself with this, and there's a lot of moving parts in this. The city of Black Mountain produces approximately 500,000 gallons of water a day from the wells that they have. I think there's 13 maybe. The city of Black Mountain also purchases somewhere in the neighborhood of 190,000 gallons a month of water from the city of Asheville and resells it. They have the right to buy up to 200,000 under the contract that currently exists. So the issue looking forward revolves around, number one, the city of Asheville is going to turn over 600 customers to Black Mountain. Black Mountain has agreed to take them. There's 13 miles of water line within the city limits. That's going to be done in 2 stages, 300 and 300 more. And trying to figure out the date when that will occur, because that's contingent upon getting the new pump up and running that will be able to pump the 750 gallons that the system may eventually need. About a week and a half ago, was it RFQ? Is that what it's called, Jesse? The RFQs, the request for qualifications, was opened. Erica Anderson from Land and Sky, myself, a gentleman from MSD, and Jesse Gardner's firm was awarded the contract to do that. Jesse, could you tell us about that process real quick about, can I call on him to help? Yeah. And so in terms of the things we talked about earlier today, how that works and the time frame?
Jesse Gardner, I'm with Civil Design Concepts. I'm also project engineer for the design portion of the utility package that's feeding the bottom project that the town was the applicant on and being funded by EDA and Golden Leaf. So we've been, and Larry's been at our partner meetings with the Land of Sky. But to give the board a little just big picture timing wise, we just received, I think last week, approval from EDA to put our water and sewer packages out to bid. And right now we're coordinating with, there's two other design wheels that are running. DOT has awarded a contract to upgrade access road that runs to a bottom and actually build several, it's about 1,500 feet of new road on the south side of Interstate 40. They've awarded that, give them a notice to proceed, and you'd probably start seeing construction happen maybe this week. It's just up to the contractor, but they awarded it in June, or notice to proceed in June. Our schedule, being the utilities, are tentatively to put it out to bid in July or August, and to be able to award it there soon after, and potentially start construction in September or October range. I envision that being about a 12-month project. We've got, I don't know, maybe 2,500 linear feet of sewer, got a bore under the river and bore across Interstate 40, and got maybe 3,000 linear feet of 10-inch water line to lay out the access road, along with the construction of a new pump station. So I target that to be about a 12-month construction time period. That would put us being up and running with the new pump station and the purchasing water from Asheville in that location around August, October time range. And then the other piece to the puzzle is Avadum's on-site construction. They have to get started, and they essentially at our last meeting on the 25th have set the target date of opening the business in the 4th quarter of next year is what they told us. They still got a lot of design and permitting, a little bit of design and permitting to do before they can actually break ground, but I think they would be breaking ground early, maybe the fall of this year or early next year, and coordinate with our all 3 construction schedules together.
Jess, will they start doing some work out there on their site as soon as they get that permit, that national wetland permit?
So they've applied for the Army Corps permit for the wetlands. They have just applied for a county stormwater permit, and then then they'll have to get a grading permit. So they said they could potentially start breaking ground, moving dirt on their pad in September, October.
And Jesse, any thoughts or information about how much water is going to be used out there by them and then the others? And
So,
different numbers bandied about.
Yeah, it is my understanding of Vodom, the building that's being constructed, is only asked for like 25,000 gallons per day. You know, as the whole park could develop, I could see that. I've heard numbers of 100, 150, 200,000 gallons per day, full build out. Does that happen immediately? No. Does it happen over time? Yes. We hope so, I guess.
Yeah. Do they have a range, Jesse, of 25,000? Do they have any anticipation of what's their top end number?
Of Autumn?
Mm-hmm.
So I've heard them talk about a phase 2 that would be potentially going beyond the land that they've purchased or swapped today. And so that would be if that happens. But I've not heard any numbers bigger than 25,000 gallons per day. Is what I remember.
Yeah, and that number did. I mean, the larger number of like 2 to 250 per day was floated about, and I gathered it must have just got included with the entire park. Mm-hmm. But they would know. I mean, for everyone's information, if you don't already know it, they're already in roughly 100,000 square feet of production space and have been for some time. So they know what. That's right. They know what. I mean, they know what their water use would be, and it is my understanding that production space would cease to. They're going to move it out there.
I think
that's
so.
not
that's
just
right.
That's not office headquarters or something. That's production as well. So they know what they're producing. So and that's what the Steve Woody, the CEO or the CEO, told you was 25. So that would be what we want. What I think our obligation is for commitment, and when we're working through the numbers. The other part for what else is needed at the Commerce Park or whatever else, that just needs to go in that number you and I were talking before the meeting. In all this water agreement that we want to work up, we do want to plan for future capacity, just the future growth of the town, because we don't really have a water source. Our water source are these wells that we haven't dug a successful well in a number of years, and so we're looking for this agreement to provide for our future growth in addition to what we know is coming, which is of Autumn and 300 new Asheville customers. Or is it 600?
600 total.
300 at a time.
Yeah.
So 600 new. We know we have 600 Asheville customers. We know we have a bottom, and then there's this number that I think, and Dean, you'd have to. The number we'd used in prior discussions for future growth was 200-ish, 200 to 250. Is it not?
Yeah,
that's a day.
Well, if I could, Dean and I have kicked this around a bunch the last couple of weeks, trying to figure out how to demonstrate so you got a picture of what isn't. And we prepared a couple of charts for you if you to look at those, and we talk about the numbers because there's several things to consider. And thank you, Jess, for that. One, in terms of contracting for future needs, what you're actually contracting for is the right to buy a certain amount of water. And then if you buy the water, then you pay a certain amount per their measurement. So the chart, the larger numbers on that chart, if you look at it, we're currently buying 200,000 gallons a day, and they charge you a monthly fee for the right to buy the water of $3,680. And then on the second chart on the next page, it will show you what it actually cost us to buy it. It's $9,600. So you can see our monthly expense. And then there's a fixed fee for capital improvement that they charge you. And Dean told me today that's according to your meter size. And for us, it's $1,165 a month that they charge us. I guess that's kind of their maintenance fee that they set aside for a meter that big. But at any rate, going back to the larger numbers on the sheets, this will show you the cost monthly and yearly for how many gallons of water you reserve the right to buy. So right now you're at 200, and it's $44,000 a year. That's what you pay to reserve the 200,000 gallons of water that we're using now. So when you seek to expand, that's why I said earlier, it's a lot of moving parts, being when do we need some water? So when will we get the 600 customers? When will Avada want any water? And then when do we anticipate there be other high demand customers that come on? So it's kind of like you can't just say this is, and you're a numbers guy, being an accountant, you can't really pinpoint it. That's something we've been working on, and we tried to find out a little more from Avada today. And it may be the kind of thing. Let's try to keep pinning down some numbers if we can before you make a commitment. I mean, because we don't know. My guess is, from what Jesse has said, late next fall, you're probably going to need 100,000 gallons for the 600 customers and Avada. That's probably where you are. So do you want to go ahead and move up $100,000, or do you want to go ahead and lock in more? But there's the monies it cost you. So just got to figure out what you want to spend in your budget for that. Asheville, I think, is roughly a 50 million gallons they can produce a day. 42, but they use low 20s.
17 is what I saw last.
Right. They use about half of it.
About half of it. So Asheville has the capacity to let loose 20 million gallons, give or take. So you got to decide at what point, and that's what you're doing. It's like buying life insurance.
That's right.
At what point do you decide that we have to get them to commit a certain number of gallons to us to take care of our future growth? So that's kind of the equation that you're doing. You know you got 100,000 coming when Avada and the 600 Asheville folks get here. A new demand for 100,000, and then you've got the expansion.
Whatever you have. Well, I think it's important, at least in my opinion, for the board to consider, I mean, one way or the other, you have to have some capacity. And so in prior years, boards sitting here decades ago said, we need to dig another well. And they'd have been happy to have dug it if they knew they could have, absolutely assured that they were going to get water, because they're always looking for more capacity. So to me, this is the same decision that we're going to need to make. And we can put it off and say they got plenty of water, and so we don't need to worry about future growth at this point in time. And I would, in my thinking, I think that's maybe not a good idea. I think we need to consider what we can afford. Of course, we can't afford it. We can't afford it. But what can we afford? Insurance would be the word, but you can look at it as insurance, but you can also look at it the same way we have for decades. You need to look make sure that we have either a well, or in this case, we know we can buy it from Asheville. We need to lock in because things could change. And so we just have to, I think, in discussions that I've had with Dean, it's part of what you're paying for in your water rates. What we have to consider and pay for is planning for the future, like we've tried to do all along anyway.
One thing I think to think of too, when you get 600 customers plus a customer that's going to pay for 25,000 gallons a year, there may be some, for lack of a better word, the profit you derive for that may be a good source of revenue to look at allocating toward your future.
Sure.
And those are things just to look at and allocate.
Well, I think it may not be for this meeting. I don't know that we're ready to do it, but at some juncture before we finalize any agreement, I think the board would want to know just how we would incorporate our needs into our water rates. Avada's going to be paying, they're outside of the city limits, so their rate would be different. Everyone else is inside the city limit, but I'd like to see some, and maybe this is worth asking for if the board's in agreement with this, ask Dean to come up with some projections for the cost and how we would incorporate that cost into fees for what we know is coming, which is 100,000, and make sure and nail that down. And then for our future growth, because we have not only the future growth from residential, what we can project in a comfortable way would be residential growth in the future, but you got the Commerce Park that I think probably will, should get some activity once the exchange comes in and once they have water and sewer out there. I think it's pretty likely. And then furthermore, you have Montreat College that has the president's been here and spoken to us, and they'd love to expand and be on their property down there that they have in the middle of Black Mountain.
But we have kicked around a lot of numbers the last week or so, trying to figure out a way to present it and try to figure out some of what it costs, what you make off of it, what the new income stream, and be glad to spend more time working on that and try to nail down, if we can, see what Avada will tell us in terms of what their projections are.
Yeah.
Start out at 25. Is that what they're going to top out at? Or are they going to go from 25 to 50 over 10 years or whatever? Just try to get a grip on that.
And I would think that the city of Asheville, if we have a known need for industrial expansion of any kind, or the college's expansion, they've got water and they're in the business of selling it. So if we have something unprojected that comes, I think the likelihood of working through it, another amendment is pretty likely. But at the same time, I do think it's prudent for us for the board to consider what we can afford to set aside for future growth. I think that's the question at hand. What can we afford? How much would it cost our water users?
And if anybody has any questions, just get a hold of me or Dean, and we'll be glad to go through any of this.
So I guess my question, Mr. Mayor, is where we are on this, because we're not quite ready to get a number and ask Ron to work on an agreement and another amendment. So maybe have this discussion in more detail as far as rates and so forth at the August meeting?
Yep, that'd be good.
Great. Let me ask a question. I think I'd heard of this monthly fee of like $1,100. So we're paying that. That's for our one tap,
Yes.
our one pumping station.
1 meter.
So that I guess won't change with the new pump station. It's $1,100, and then the per gallon commitment fee is like 0.0081. 1.8 or something like that.
And that's whether you reserve 100,000 or $1 million. It's the same rate
Per gallon.
You don't
right?
get any difference.
Yeah. Is that, Dean, is that?
Yeah, it's $1,840 to reserve 100,000 gallons a day for a month.
So it's like 0.0018.
Yeah, it's
per gallon or something. Gallon per
exactly.
day.
Yeah.
Something like that. A period and a bunch of zeros.
Yes.
Ready for new business?
Yes, sir. All right. The approval of Motorola Solutions lease.
That's a two-part thing, Mayor. If we could, I would ask that we do B first. That's the approval, because this contract's been tweaked over the last week or two between our lawyer and their representatives, I guess. Some issues came up. So we'd ask the board to consider approving a newly drafted resolution, which is R-18-12, which is a resolution to lease police radio equipment, Motorola Solutions, Inc., certified lessee resolutions. Asked to approve that resolution first, and then we'll go to the actual lease.
Have a motion to approve R-18-12.
So moved.
All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Approved 5-0.
And then the second part of this, there's a lease that has been, I read it a week or so ago. I haven't read the new one, but I'm sure Mr. Sneed has, and I don't know if he has any comments on it, but it's a 3-year, but they're not charging us money till the second year or something.
First payment's due first day of the next fiscal year.
And that is for equipment that I think the chief will tell you is sorely needed, since you have communication issues in the mountains with law enforcement and fire departments. And that is a motion to approve the Motorola Solutions lease to purchase police communication equipment. I ask that a motion to approve that be passed.
And that is just a reminder for the public, but also for me. But it's that we have incorporated that into the current year budget. So we've had plans on it, and the cost of the the cost of the funds is something like 4.5%. Yeah, so, and we've already discussed, but it's worth noting, it's needed and it's actually a pretty good deal, the way they worked out with the
Mr.
financing.
Mayor, I don't know if it'd be helpful, but Sean, would you care to come up and just give us a brief overview of what this system does compared to our current system? Just because it's been, we talked about this around budget time, and we haven't talked about it since, just to refresh the public's memory.
So essentially, under the current VHF system that we have, if we proceed outside the city limits to either assist or car chases, anything of that nature, we end up losing total communication with our dispatch, with officers who are not directly right in the vicinity of this. And then also when we have other agencies responding as well, we have no way to interact through in-car or portable at the time with those. What this does is it upgrades our system to where we keep constant contact with our communications center. We have the capability of reaching out to other agencies who may be responding to assist us. It enhances our emergency response to citizens within the city, and it improves our officer safety as well. The way this lease lays out is the first year we get the equipment. There's no interest, no payments, like Mr. Sneed said, until the next budget year, and then we pick it up for 3 years.
Thank you for that.
All righty. Any other questions?
Motion to approve.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion approved, 5-0. All right, public hearings, we have none. Communications from Mr. Ron Sneed, Town Attorney.
If I can put on two hats at one time, Mr. Mayor, as the board knows, I'm also on the library board, and the parking issue, I'm not going to talk about the parking issue. I'm going to tell you what we discovered in the course of the parking issue. Was the town owns that building. The town does not lease it to the county. The county operates the library within their building by agreement. Back in the early 80s, when PAC was looking at integrating our library, which we ran and paid for and staffed and bought books for, into the PAC library system, negotiations began between the town and the county to work out what that arrangement would be. And we've worked under that arrangement now for 30-some years, and nobody can find the written arrangement. And I've talked to Gigi Francis, although she's trying to retire, head of the library system, and I proposed to her that we put together a document that reflects actually how the county and the town cooperate in the operation of the library, and present that both to the town and to the county, and see if we can get an agreement that's finalized in writing. Nobody's turned up a final resolution or a final form of that agreement from 30-some years ago, and so I thought I'd bring that to the board. This will be done on my library board hat. It doesn't cost the town, but I think we need to narrow that down and get something in writing, so that 35 years from now, somebody asks that question, we can point at a written agreement.
Save it on your hard drive.
Yes, right.
So really, you're just talking about coming up with a new agreement.
Yeah, I'm just telling you that I already talked to the head of the system. We're going to put together what we do. We found the old proposals. Some of the things in those proposals are happening, some are not. And just put down in writing what's really going on right now and turn that into a written agreement. And nothing will change as we go forward. We shall have a written agreement.
All right, Mr. Moore.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you for letting me be here with you. I've enjoyed the last couple of weeks. You have a lot of good employees, and I'm pretty impressed with them. And I've enjoyed getting to know them. And the thing I said to them when I got here is, tell me what you need to do your job. The first thing I would mention, about a week or so ago, we placed an ad for a new town manager after having meetings with the board several times, and Angela and I and some of us, we worked on that. We've got it placed in various publications where people who are looking for those types of jobs. It's also on the website. We've gotten 30 or so inquiries in just over a week of it being posted. The foam and fabric building, which we're going to have to figure out what to call it. Maybe we need to have a contest. But we're trying. I've been over there, I think, 4 times with different folks and looking at it and trying to figure out how to get moving forward to allow Parks and Rec and the maintenance folks to move in. I stopped down on 70 at the maintenance building a few weeks ago where they currently live, and it's amazing how much stuff is in that little building. It's unbelievable how they got stacked to the ceiling, and I think they'll be the happiest people in town if they can spread out a little bit. We're working on trying to move toward moving in there. We're dealing with issues. We're going to have a fence put around it. That's one of the most important things before you can move the equipment over there, since a lot of the town's assets are tied up in the equipment and supplies and things that the maintenance folks have. We're also, and that was budgeted in last year's budget to build that, the sand and salt that you need for when it snows and the weather's bad. You got to have a place to store that, and so there's a used to be the dumpsters were in there, and the cinder blocks are about head high, so we're going to put a shelter over those to keep the sand or to keep the salt dry. Right now, I think it's stored under some tarp, and from time to time probably has some issues with that. We've been over there. Dean's been working on talking to folks about the phone system. The one that's over there is not a very good one. It's patched together, so we'll have to work on that. But again, that was something that was budgeted for. The alarm system, the chief was over there with Jamie and I the other day, and the IT guy. There's 12 cameras already on the premises over there, and we're going to get those tied into the police department so they can help keep an eye on the building after hours. We're looking at the space needs of the maintenance and the rec folks, and looking at long-range planning about things. And eventually there will have to be a sprinkler system put in that building, so that's something that certainly needs to be considered in your capital improvements in the next several years going forward, because that will kind of change a little bit of how you can utilize the building. One of the things now, I think, will be that we can't store certain chemicals and stuff in the great big building unless you chop it up into little tiny pieces. So you'll have to have a sprinkler system. But fortunately, there's a big building out, for lack of a better word, in the backyard. It's 3 big bays where you can put large trucks and do maintenance. So you'll be able to store your flammables, oils and gases and things like that out there. And it's small enough you don't have to worry about the sprinkler system this time. But eventually it'd probably be nice for some of the stuff to be stored inside the larger portion, which was a warehouse in effect. And that's a great place to store a lot of your stuff. But they're going to work around that. But that's pretty exciting to me to try to pull that off the next couple of months while I'm here, is try to get that building up and going, because that is a fantastic building and has enough space needs for a long time for this town for a lot of your different functions. As I said earlier when I was mentioning asking the board to approve a 10% raise for Jamie Matthews, he's the interim supervisor since June 18th. Has been working extra hard trying to get a grip on what's going on over there and how to be efficient about running their business. We're shorthanded, and we're looking at some stuff. In fact, I had a phone call a while ago for somebody we're talking to, maybe on a temporary basis. We also met today, and Angela's helping us. We've got an ad probably going to be put out tomorrow, advertising for a supervisor to take Miss Williams' place. And Miss Williams left to go to Henderson County for a substantial raise. She's getting probably a 20-25% raise for a job she's got over there. And so that's why we have that shortage. She turned in her notice a week or so ago. And with regard to speaking of shortages and people leaving, got a letter the other day from our fire chief. He's decided that he's going to retire at the end of the year. And one thing I wanted to ask the board at some point, I need some guidance about how we're going to conduct a new chief search and the time frame and the method that we want to use. So I'd say start thinking about that. But at any rate, I think some of the other things I had have already been dealt with as we've gone along here. And if there's any questions, feel free to ask me. I've enjoyed my last 2.5 weeks I've been here. There's a lot of neat people, there's a lot of neat projects, there's a lot of moving parts to this town. And I wasn't looking for a job. I didn't want a job. And but when they called, I've always had a lot of respect for the folks out here in Black Mountain, have a lot of friends. And I went online and read about your town, all the things you had going on. And I was surprised how much was going on. Also had read the budget from the year before that was online and saw all the different things you were funding. So it's really an interesting place, and I'm enjoying it. And like I say, the first meeting I had with department heads, meet every Tuesday with them, was what can I do to help you do your job. So my job here is to solve problems and hope to solve whatever problems there may be around, so that when you get your permanent manager, they won't have to deal with stuff like that. They can hit the ground running. And I appreciate the opportunity to be with you. Thank you.
Communications from the board.
I have, Mr. Mayor.
Yes, sir.
One, I'd like to talk about transparency. There's been a lot of talk in town lately about this board not being very transparent about things that are going on, particularly about personnel matters. I think that this board is, we're restricted under certain guidelines of the state of North Carolina general statutes as to what we can discuss and cannot discuss with citizens, particularly when it pertains to personnel matters. We've lost some good people recently. I don't think anybody can doubt that. They left some big shoes to be filled. But the fact of the matter is, nobody forced them out. Nobody asked them to leave. They made their own decision to go with where they went. If you would look at their situations, what they did, they moved up, which is probably a lot of people sitting in this room have done in past jobs themselves. So please don't put anything on the board or try to create rumors that's going to try to make these people look bad. Nobody ran them off. Nobody told them you got to go. They made their decision and they left. We support all the employees in this town. We have a great bunch of people working for this town. Look around any day and you see folks out there doing things. Go into any office in this building or any office in any of these buildings and see what people are doing. Don't just show up for these meetings. Make yourself known all over town. Let people know who you are and what you're there for, what you want to see them. Pat them on the back sometime. Just say thank you. Don't get on Facebook and belittle people. That's not what it's all about. We have a hell of a bunch of people who work for us, and they're doing an excellent job. On the kinder note, folks, if you haven't noticed yet, and I noticed the hard way yesterday, if it hadn't been for my wife screaming at me, I would have probably ran into somebody. They made down there on Vance Avenue by Louisa's Kitchen, what is that intersection there? They made that a four-way stop again. If you haven't noticed it, please notice it. Like I said, I almost found out the hard way. If Sheila hadn't yelled, stop, 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 we would have T-boned somebody. So please, and I don't know if that was in the paper or not. Get the word out, let people know if we need to put up some kind of signage there or something. But be extra careful. Folks, we're working for you. You put us in these offices up here, and we're doing the best we can to meet your needs to get things done. Thank you.
While you're speaking of streets, I had an email before I came to the meeting tonight. Citizen being concerned about the closure sign at the intersection of Blue Ridge and number 9. It says number 9 closed at Shumont. Well, apparently a lot of people, when they venture on to number 9, keep going, they're not quite sure where Shumont is. So they were saying maybe that sign, and I don't know who puts that up. Jamie, is that DOT?
That's DOT.
Maybe one way would be, say, closed to Bat Cave and Chimney Rock, because I haven't been that far down because I paid attention to the sign, but that's something that we might need to alert them about. I think you're the one to speak to about that. Okay.
No,
To Bat Cave. Yeah, it's on this side of 9. I think it's before 9 crosses, what is that, 74 and that intersects there.
I think it's about 8 or 10 miles out of Bat Cave, Chimney Rock area,
Yeah,
on number 9
yeah.
coming this way.
But it may be a little unclear. I would certainly hate to drive down that far and realize I have to turn around and come back.
True.
Mr. Mayor, the only thing I'd like to mention is that just for the folks who are interested in the Cherry Street one-way decision, which was brought to us by the merchants on Cherry Street back in April, really, that they will get that report soon on the recommendation of our consultant on Cherry Street, one way, et cetera, all that sort of thing, and move forward on that or not, or whatever needs to be done. I don't think my read from the board is that I don't think anybody has any predisposed opinions about it. We just want to know what we can do, and the merchants would like that. And if it can be done with traffic flow and everything else, I think we're all amenable to making it work. But there are a lot of moving parts when you think about the traffic and where it's going to go if it goes one way. So we'll see what the consultant has to say, hopefully soon.
Anyone else?
Well, Mr. Mayor, I would just add that, again, this Thursday, we will have 2 special called meetings, one in the morning at 8:30 to 9:30, and one in the evening from 5 to 6, where we will be here to have an open session for members of the public to come in and help us prioritize what characteristics and qualities we were seeking in our next town manager. So we ask all that are available to please come and participate in that. And then lastly, I want to thank Carlos for his comments earlier in regards to this board's support of the various town departments and employees. I would like to speak for all of us and say that we are unwavering in wanting to make these departments the best they can be for the citizens and the employees that are there. And that will be our goal now and moving forward. And lastly, just want to thank all of the new volunteers for volunteering their time to serve on the various boards and commissions. Thank you for participating and being a part of this. We look forward to the valuable service you're going to provide.
Ryan, what was your evening meeting again Thursday?
That is Thursday. There will be a morning session from 8:30 to 9:30, and then also an evening session from 5 to 6. And also spots are available for the Citizens Academy this fall that Angela is going to be doing.
When does that start?
I've been taking applications. I have several.
So when does it officially?
July the 30th is the end date.
Ooh.
I've got to compile some things.
Anyone else as far as the Alderman? All right, I just want to mention that last week, Black Mountain, the Swanville Valley, lost 2 folks that meant a lot to me and who meant a lot to this valley. One was Rusty Lunsford, who was friends to a lot of people in this town. He and his sons built lots of houses. If I'm not mistaken, they did Cherry Street bathrooms. He was a unique individual, and this valley has lost a good one. Another one was Mike Dockery. He's one of those that when I mention your name, his name, there's not, I'm sure no one in here knows who he is. But his name is on the town square restrooms on the bronze plate. His name's on the school, at the primary school, the concession stand. He was just somebody who was always willing to give of his time and effort for free to help his folks. And he was, if there's anybody that was like the widow was giving her mites, that was him, because he was always willing. He couldn't do much, but he did work and jumped in to do anything that he could for folks. So we've lost 2 good ones in this valley, and I just wanted to mention that. And without anything else, meeting adjourned.